The last train home was never supposed to stop at Briar Hollow. I only remember that because the conductor said it twice. Over the intercom, his voice crackling like a throat full of gravel, and then again when he walked past me, eyes fixed straight ahead as if the yellow wasn't even there. "No stop at Briar Hollow," he muttered. "Not anymore." It was 11:47 p.m. The hour when the city thins out and people start to look like shadows wearing clothes. I'd missed my usual ride after staying late at the garage, greased under my nails, paycheck in my wallet, head buzzing with exhaustion. The last train home was a mercy I didn't deserve. It was the only way I wouldn't be sleeping on a bench until sunrise. The car was almost empty, just a few lonely souls scattered in the dim light. There was a woman asleep against the window, her breath fogging the glass. A kid in a hoodie, his face illuminated by the dead screen of his phone as he tapped at it hopelessly, and a man with a paper sack that smelled faintly of onions. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered in slow, tired blinks. Each time they went dim, my reflection in the glass looked a little less like me, a little more worn out, a little more hollow. We rolled through the usual stations, the familiar names flashing by. Then the tunnel bent into someplace older. The walls changed from modern concrete to crumbling brick. The ads for soft drinks and new phones disappeared, replaced by bare, sweating stone. My phone signal, which had been weak, dropped to nothing. The train had a different sound, here less of the usual metal-on-metal screech, and more empty. Like it was traveling through a giant throat instead of a tunnel. Then, the brakes screamed. A sound so sudden and sharp it felt like a physical blow. We lurched to a halt. But we weren't at a platform. The doors didn't open. The bright, sterile lights went down, replaced by the faint, unsettling glow of the emergency reds. The woman who'd been sleeping woke with a start and rubbed her face, looking around in confusion. The kid pulled his hood tighter around his head, sinking into his seat. The man with the onions clutched his sack like it was some kind of comfort. The intercom clicked, a long, drawn-out silence. Then, the conductor's voice, now strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've had an unforeseen delay. Please remain seated simple and Trains stop. Delays happen. I've been stuck in tunnels for 20 minutes before, but there was no tunnel outside my window anymore. There was a station. A station I'd never seen on any map. Never heard mentioned in any announcement. The tiles on the platform were cracked and stained. The wooden benches warped as if they'd been soaked and left to dry 100 times over. The sign overhead was hand-painted, not printed. The letters slumping like they didn't want to be there. Briar Hollow. The train doors stayed shut. Still, something moved on the far end of the platform. A figure, barely visible in the light of the dying bulbs, standing too still to be a person waiting for a train. I leaned forward, pressing my face against the cold glass, squinting into the gloom. The figure lifted a hand. It was a slow, deliberate wave. And then, the train doors slid open. There was no chime, no announcement. Just a soft hiss, like a long, final exhale. Cold air poured in. Not winter cold. This was basement cold, graveyard cold. It smelled like wet earth and something metallic, like old copper pennies. The onion man stood up first. "This isn't my stop," he said, half laughing. But his voice was thin and reedy. Yet he stepped into the doorway anyway. It was like the idea had entered his feet before it ever reached his brain. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice sounding weak in the sudden silence. "Don't." He turned, his eyes glassy and unfocused, and he smiled without moving his lips. It was the most unsettling expression I'd ever seen. Then, he hopped down onto the platform. The train doors stayed open, patient. The kid stood up next, his phone forgotten on the seat. He walked towards the exit, his movements stiff and automatic. The woman stumbled to her feet, moving toward the open doors like she'd been called by name. "What the hell is going on?" I said to no one. But there was no one to answer. The conductor didn't come back. The intercom didn't click on again. Nobody? Again? Nobody screamed. One by one, the passengers walked off the train and into Briar Hollow. They moved with a strange calm, a quiet purpose, like they were leaving church. All the while, the figure at the far end of the platform kept waving, beckoning. I stayed planted in my seat. I'm not brave. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mechanic who's stubborn, with a healthy fear of places I don't recognize, and figures that don't move right. When the last passenger stepped down, the woman, the only one who had looked fully human up close, she paused in the doorway and glanced back at me. Her eyes were wrong. Not empty. They were full, packed with something that looked like television static and old, faded photographs. "Don't miss your stop," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Then she turned and followed the others into the deepening dark. Now I was alone. The red emergency lights seemed to deepen, turning every surface in the car into a dark bruise. The open doors waited. The platform waited. The waving hand waited. I did what any tired, scared man would do when everything stops making sense. I turned to look out the window on the other side of the car, away from the platform, and that's when I saw it. The reflection. The car behind me wasn't empty anymore. Every single seat was filled with people I knew. There was my father, sitting in his old work jacket, and I could almost smell the familiar scent of stale smoke that always clung to it. My best friend Marcus, who had drowned the summer after we graduated high school, sat staring straight ahead. Mrs. Ortega from next door, who used to slip me candy when I was a kid and had passed away just last spring. They all sat there quietly, facing forward, their hands folded neatly in their laps, as if this was just another normal commute. And all of them, every single one, were looking right at me. Behind their glassy, vacant eyes, the faint light from the platform flickered like a dying heartbeat. I stumbled back so fast my heel hit the metal pole in the center of the car. The vibration shot right through my bones. The doors remained open, and now the cold didn't feel like air anymore. It felt like a pull, a current tugging at me. A soft voice rose from right behind me, not over the intercom, not from any visible mouth. It was in the air itself. "Briar Hollow is yours," it said. "You've been riding past it for years." I shook my head, my heart hammering against my ribs. "No. I'm going home." As the words left my mouth, the lights cut out completely. In the absolute, suffocating blackness, I felt the train move, not forward. It was moving down. I felt it in my stomach, a sickening lurch into the earth. The platform vanished. The doors slid shut with a soft click, and then a calm, cheerful chime sounded, the kind you hear at a normal station. A sound so out of place it was terrifying. When the lights returned, they were white again. Normal. The next station sign blinked in a friendly, familiar font Homewood. My stop. The car was completely empty. My reflection in the window was just mine again. But on the seat directly across from me, there was a small paper ticket that I hadn't bought. The destination was printed in stark, block letters, Briar Hollow one way. And it was issued in my name. I got off at Homewood anyway. Primera wa, el kid fast. Almost running. I didn't look back at the train as it pulled away, and when I finally reached my apartment building, keys shaking in my hand, I found my front door already unlocked, and just inside, on the welcome mat, was a single, wet footprint leading into the darkness of my home, like something had beaten me there on the last train.